The store was quiet that morning, with only a few customers walking slowly between the neatly arranged shelves. Sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, reflecting off the polished floors and shining on the rows of expensive clothes and accessories. The manager of the store, a man who prided himself on keeping everything under control, moved quickly behind the counter, checking inventory sheets and glancing at the security monitors. He had been feeling the pressure of the morning rush and a long week of complaints, and it showed in his furrowed brow and sharp movements. Among the few customers wandering through the store, a woman caught his attention. She was standing near the high-end section, carefully looking at the products. She dressed simply but elegantly, her posture straight and her movements calm and deliberate. There was a quiet confidence about her, a presence that made her stand out without demanding attention. The manager, however, noticed her asking detailed questions about the materials and prices of the items, and instead of seeing curiosity or interest, he read it as annoyance or rudeness. The woman held up a piece of clothing, inspecting it closely, and asked about the fabric. The manager, already tense and irritated, walked over to her, his voice sharp and loud. He told her she needed to be careful with the merchandise and suggested she was mishandling the items. The woman looked at him calmly, explaining that she was just examining the product carefully and wanted to understand the quality before purchasing. Her tone was polite but firm. The manager, however, did not hear politeness. All he could feel was a challenge to his authority. He leaned closer, his face tight with frustration, and raised his voice. He told her that she needed to follow the store rules and stop being difficult. The woman's expression remained steady, but she replied clearly, asking why she should be treated this way. Her calm challenge seemed to only fuel the manager's anger. Other customers began to notice the tension building. Some stopped their shopping and watched from a distance, unsure of how to react. A few whispered quietly, their faces showing shock and concern. The atmosphere in the store changed from quiet and comfortable to heavy and tense. There was a sense of waiting, as if everyone knew something bad might happen but did not know exactly what. Then, in a sudden and shocking moment, the manager slapped the woman across the face. The sound echoed lightly in the space and everyone froze. Customers gasped, some reaching for their phones to record what had just happened. The woman held her face for a moment, stunned by the unexpected act. Her eyes widened, but she did not scream or cry. She simply took a deep breath, steadied herself, and looked at the manager with a mix of surprise and quiet fury. The manager, realizing what he had done, paused for a fraction of a second, his face flushing red with anger and embarrassment. He tried to speak, but the words came out unevenly, a mixture of defense and panic. He looked around the store, noticing the shocked faces of the other shoppers, and felt the weight of their stares. For the first time, he felt the uncomfortable sense that something had gone terribly wrong. The woman straightened her posture, her hands resting calmly at her sides. She did not retaliate or shout. Instead, she looked directly at the manager, her gaze steady and unwavering. She asked him to listen carefully, and her voice carried a quiet authority that filled the space around them. Customers leaned in slightly, curious and tense, waiting to see what she would do next. In that moment, the air in the store felt electric. The manager shifted uncomfortably, realizing that his impulsive action had made him the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. He had assumed control and power, but now that assumption was crumbling under the woman's calm presence. He felt a knot of fear and confusion in his chest, and he could not look away from her steady eyes. The woman spoke again, this time asking the manager to explain why he had hit her. Her tone was calm but firm, a question that demanded honesty and reflection. The manager's throat felt dry, and he struggled to find words that would satisfy both himself and the watching crowd. He mumbled something incoherent about stress and rules, but his excuses fell flat in the silence that followed. Shoppers around them began murmuring, some recording with their phones, others whispering to one another. The scene had turned from a simple argument into a moment of public accountability. The woman's calm and composed demeanor contrasted sharply with the manager's flustered state, making the disparity clear to everyone present. There was no doubt who held the moral high ground in the room. Some employees who had been working in the background stepped forward quietly, unsure whether to intervene or wait for instructions. Their eyes darted between the manager and the woman, sensing the gravity of the situation. No one wanted to escalate it further, yet no one could ignore what had just happened. The woman, sensing the collective unease, maintained her composure, letting the moment speak for itself. For several tense seconds, neither the manager nor the woman moved. Time seemed to stretch, each heartbeat echoing in the quiet of the store. The manager's face betrayed his inner turmoil, shame, anger, fear, and confusion all mixed in a single expression. He was trapped by his own actions, unable to take back the moment or erase the humiliation that was now plain for all to see. The woman finally spoke again, addressing the onlookers this time, not with anger but with a quiet dignity. She reassured the customers that she was fine and asked them not to worry. Her calmness, her ability to control her emotions despite what had just happened, left many of the shoppers in awe. They realized that the incident was not just about a moment of aggression, it was about character, composure, and presence of mind. As the woman continued to speak, the manager's hands trembled slightly. He realized that whatever position of authority he held in the store, it meant nothing in the face of her quiet strength. He tried to step back, but the crowd's attention pinned him in place and the weight of his actions settled on him like a heavy burden. The woman's composure never wavered. She explained that she would address the incident properly, but there was no need for further confrontation in the middle of the store. Her voice was clear, calm, and commanding, creating an atmosphere where she was in control without raising her tone. The manager, for the first time, understood that power and respect were not demonstrated through aggression, but through dignity and self-control. Shoppers began to leave the area, still whispering about what had just occurred, while others stayed to witness the outcome. The woman turned slightly, making eye contact with a few employees, silently conveying that they should remain calm and professional. Her presence alone seemed to ease the tension in the room, creating a ripple of respect and admiration among those watching. The manager, feeling cornered and exposed, finally muttered an apology, though it sounded forced and incomplete. The woman acknowledged it, but her calm gaze made it clear that true accountability went beyond words. It required reflection and learning. The moment hung in the air, thick with tension, as everyone sensed that this was the beginning of a story that would not end quietly. The woman, holding herself with the same quiet strength she had shown since entering the store, prepared to take control of the situation. There was no anger in her actions, no attempt to escalate or humiliate the manager further. She simply demonstrated the power of composure, dignity, and quiet authority. Customers and employees alike felt the weight of the lesson, realizing that what had happened in those few tense minutes was more than a confrontation. It was a test of character for everyone involved. As she walked calmly toward the exit, the woman left behind an atmosphere charged with reflection. People whispered to each other, sharing their thoughts and feelings about what had happened. Some felt anger on her behalf, some shame for the manager, and others admiration for her strength. The story of that moment would soon spread far beyond the walls of the store, carried by the whispers, recordings, and shared experiences of those who witnessed it. Even as the woman stepped outside, her calmness did not fade. She had maintained control without aggression, proving that true power lies in composure, courage, and dignity. The manager was left standing in the store, facing the consequences of his impulsive actions and realizing that respect cannot be demanded through fear or violence. In that quiet morning, a lesson in humanity and grace had been delivered in the most public and unforgettable way. After the shocking moment in the store, the woman remained calm, her composure unshaken despite the manager's aggression. She took a deep breath, feeling the eyes of everyone on her. She knew that how she handled this moment would define the entire situation. She stepped closer to the manager, her voice firm but controlled, asking him to listen carefully. There was a quiet authority in her tone that immediately made the manager uneasy. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his confidence gone, replaced by confusion and a growing sense of panic. She looked him in the eye and spoke in a steady voice, asking him if he understood the seriousness of what he had just done. The manager's throat felt dry and he struggled to form words. He mumbled something about stress, rules, and maintaining order, but she interrupted him gently, telling him that excuses would not help him now. Her calmness contrasted sharply with his nervous energy, making the room feel tense and silent. Other customers and employees watched, sensing that something extraordinary was happening. This was no ordinary confrontation, and the woman's presence made it clear that the balance of power had shifted. Then, In a deliberate and composed way, she revealed who she really was. She told the manager, still standing in shock, that she was the owner of the store and part of a larger chain she had built from the ground up. She explained that she had started her business with nothing and had worked tirelessly to create a brand known for quality and customer service. She spoke with humility but also with a quiet confidence that commanded attention. The words hit the manager like a wave. His face turned pale, his mind racing as he tried to process the revelation. The woman he had just slapped was not a random customer. She was the billionaire who owned the very business he thought he controlled. The other customers gasped, some murmuring softly among themselves. A few had been recording the incident and now they realized the full context. They exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief. The energy in the store shifted from shock to anticipation. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Would the woman retaliate, demand punishment, or forgive? The uncertainty added to the tension, making every moment feel heavy with expectation. The manager tried to speak, but his words faltered. He opened his mouth to apologize, but the sound of his own voice seemed weak and insufficient. He knew he had made a grave mistake, and the realization hit him hard. For the first time, he felt the consequences of his impulsive actions. He had acted out of stress and anger, believing he held authority, only to find that he had publicly humiliated himself in front of the person who could end his career with a single decision. The woman remained calm, observing his reaction without raising her voice. She allowed him a moment to gather his thoughts, knowing that fear and embarrassment could cloud his judgment. She wanted him to understand the gravity of his actions fully, not just fear the consequences. There was a lesson to be learned here, and she intended to teach it in a way that was clear and unforgettable. The store seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation, as everyone waited to see how this confrontation would resolve. Finally, she suggested they move to a private space away from the public eye. The manager, still in shock, nodded reluctantly. The woman led him to a small office above the store, a room filled with photos of her journey, awards, and mementos from years of building her company. The environment was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos below. She asked the manager to sit, and he sank into the chair, his hands trembling slightly. He felt exposed and vulnerable, a stark contrast to the confident man who had strutted around the store just moments ago. Once seated, she spoke about her life, her challenges, and the work it took to build a successful business. She emphasized the values that guided her company: respect, accountability, and empathy. She explained that power was not about aggression or control, but about treating people with dignity and fairness. As she spoke, the manager listened intently, feeling both remorse and admiration. He realized how far he had strayed from these principles, and how his actions could have deeply affected someone else. She then asked him to reflect on why he had acted as he did, encouraging honesty and self-examination. The manager admitted that he had felt stressed, overwhelmed, and defensive. He acknowledged that he had misjudged her behavior and responded inappropriately. Her calm response did not scold him harshly, but made it clear that his actions were unacceptable. The room felt heavy with learning, a silent understanding passing between them. This was not just a reprimand. It was a chance for growth and self-awareness. The woman continued, explaining that she did not want to escalate the situation publicly or make it a spectacle. Instead, she wanted to turn the incident into a lesson, a teaching moment not just for him but for the entire staff. She emphasized the importance of training, understanding unconscious biases, and creating a workplace where respect and professionalism were non-negotiable. Her words were measured, but each one carried weight, shaping the manager's understanding of accountability and leadership. The manager, feeling the weight of the conversation, apologized sincerely, expressing regret for his impulsive behavior. His voice was steady but humble, a stark contrast to the arrogance he had displayed earlier. The woman accepted his apology, but she also made it clear that this was not just about saying sorry, it was about changing behavior and mindset. She gave him specific guidance on how to improve, stressing that true leadership required empathy, patience, and self-control. Meanwhile, back in the store, customers and employees continued to discuss what had happened. Some were amazed at her composure, others inspired by her approach to resolving conflict. The incident had already begun to spread online, with videos circulating and people sharing their reactions. The story was capturing attention not just for the shocking moment, but for the remarkable way she handled it. It was becoming an example of how dignity and grace could turn a negative situation into a powerful lesson. After the conversation, the woman returned to the store. Her calm presence immediately settled the tension in the air. She addressed the employees, reminding them of the values of the company and the importance of respectful behavior. She did not single out the manager in a humiliating way, but encouraged learning and growth. Her approach was firm but compassionate, creating an environment where accountability did not come with fear but with understanding and reflection. The manager, now aware of the magnitude of his mistake, felt a mix of shame and gratitude. He realized that he had been given a chance to learn, to correct his behavior, and to become a better leader. The woman's approach had shown him that true authority was not about dominance, but about respect and integrity. He made a mental note to carry this lesson forward, understanding that his future actions would define not only his career, but the culture of the store he managed. As the day continued, the store slowly returned to normal, but the atmosphere was changed. Employees were more mindful of their actions. Customers were more aware of the power of composure, and the manager carried a new understanding of responsibility. The woman's presence had left an indelible mark, demonstrating that even in moments of conflict, strength, dignity, and calm could create powerful lessons for everyone involved. By the end of the day, the incident had sparked discussions among the staff, customers, and the wider community. People began sharing stories of similar experiences, reflecting on how respect and empathy could transform tense situations. The woman's handling of the moment became a model for leadership, showing that true power was measured not by wealth or authority, but by the ability to respond to challenges with grace and intelligence. The manager, now humbled, began thinking about how to implement changes in the store. He realized that training alone would not be enough. He needed to change his mindset, to approach every interaction with empathy and understanding. He saw the importance of creating a workplace where respect was the foundation and accountability was a shared responsibility. The woman's quiet strength had not only corrected his behavior, but inspired a deeper commitment to improvement. By the evening, the store had closed, but the story was far from over. News of the incident had spread online, drawing attention from people all over the city. The woman had turned a moment of personal humiliation into a powerful example of leadership, teaching not just the manager, but everyone who heard the story, the importance of dignity, composure, and accountability. Her calm handling of the situation showed that true strength lay not in retaliation or aggression, but in the courage to lead with integrity and wisdom. In the quiet of the empty store, the manager sat alone reflecting on the day's events. He felt a deep sense of responsibility and a determination to change. The woman's words, her calm presence, and her unwavering authority had left a lasting impression. He knew that the lesson he learned today would shape his future actions and the culture of the store he managed. The incident, though shocking and difficult, had become a turning point, a moment that would influence not only his life but the lives of everyone who worked there. After the private conversation in the office, the woman returned to the main store area. Her calm and composed presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. Customers, employees, and even the manager sensed that she was in control, not through anger or intimidation, but through quiet authority. She walked slowly through the aisles, observing the reactions of the shoppers. Many were still talking quietly among themselves, sharing their shock and amazement at what had just happened. Some held their phones, showing videos to friends, while others whispered stories of their own experiences with disrespect and conflict. The woman paused near the cash, register, and spoke directly to the staff. Her voice was gentle yet firm, carrying the weight of experience and leadership. She reminded them of the company's core values: respect, integrity, and accountability. She emphasized that every customer, regardless of who they were, deserved to be treated with dignity. Her words were not harsh or threatening. Instead, they were educational, inspiring, and commanding attention through wisdom rather than force. The manager, still near the center of the store, listened intently. He felt a mix of shame and appreciation, shame for his actions and appreciation for the way the woman was handling the situation. She had not yelled, punished, or humiliated him publicly. She had used calmness, clarity, and authority to teach a lesson that would stay with him for the rest of his career. He realized that this was the kind of leadership he had never understood, a form of influence rooted in respect and integrity rather than fear or dominance. She then addressed the customers, acknowledging what they had witnessed without focusing on anger or blame. She thanked them for their patience and understanding, and explained that the situation would be handled appropriately. She did not shy away from admitting that the incident had been serious and unacceptable, but she also highlighted the importance of learning and growth. Her ability to handle the confrontation with grace impressed everyone in the store, and a sense of calm began to return to the space. As she spoke, employees began to feel a new sense of responsibility. They realized that their actions, words, and attitudes mattered. They saw that leadership was not about asserting dominance, but about modeling the behavior they wanted others to follow. Some employees exchanged glances, quietly acknowledging that the lessons they were learning in this one encounter would shape the culture of the store going forward. There was a newfound understanding that respect and professionalism were not optional, but essential. The woman then turned to the manager, inviting him to walk with her through the store. As they moved together, she explained how leadership required constant reflection and improvement. She pointed out examples of how staff could better handle difficult situations, emphasizing empathy and communication. She shared stories from her own journey, times when she had faced challenges, discrimination, and doubt, and how she had learned to navigate them with patience and composure. Her stories resonated with him, and he began to see the broader picture beyond the immediate mistake he had made. The manager listened closely, taking mental notes of her advice. He realized that the incident had been a wake-up call, an opportunity to reassess how he approached authority, customer service, and workplace relationships. He understood that his impulsive reaction had caused harm, not only to the woman but to the company's reputation and the morale of the staff. The realization weighed heavily on him, but it also sparked a determination to do better, to learn from this moment and become a more thoughtful, empathetic leader. The woman continued, explaining that accountability was not only about acknowledging mistakes but about taking concrete steps to prevent them from happening again. She outlined a plan for additional training sessions, focusing on anti-bias awareness, respectful communication, and conflict resolution. She encouraged the staff to engage in open discussions, to ask questions, and to challenge their own assumptions. Her approach was proactive, not punitive, emphasizing learning and growth rather than punishment. The manager felt a sense of relief, knowing that the focus was on improvement rather than retribution, but he also felt a strong responsibility to follow through and implement the lessons he was learning. Meanwhile, the customers who had witnessed the confrontation began to share their experiences with one another. Some expressed admiration for the woman's calm handling of the situation, noting how rare it was to see someone respond to aggression without escalating it. Others discussed the importance of empathy and awareness in everyday interactions, reflecting on times when they had witnessed or experienced similar situations. The incident had sparked conversations about respect, accountability, and personal growth, extending far beyond the store's walls. The woman, sensing the momentum, decided to make a small but meaningful gesture. She invited a few employees to join her in a short discussion about workplace culture and leadership. They gathered in a quiet corner, and she asked them to share their thoughts, feelings, and ideas. She listened attentively, validating their experiences and offering guidance where needed. Her approach was inclusive and empowering, encouraging staff to take ownership of their actions and contribute to a positive work environment. The employees felt heard, respected, and motivated, recognizing that the woman's leadership was not just about authority, but about fostering understanding and growth. The manager observed this interaction closely, absorbing the lessons being shared. He began to reflect on his own behavior, considering how he could change his approach to leadership. He realized that he had often relied on fear, control, or impatience to manage staff and customers, and that these methods were ineffective and harmful. The woman's example showed him that true leadership required empathy, patience, and the ability to inspire others through positive influence rather than coercion. As the day progressed, the woman continued to move through the store, engaging with both staff and customers. She answered questions, offered guidance, and shared insights about the company's values. Her presence transformed the atmosphere from one of tension and discomfort to one of learning, respect, and collaboration. Customers felt valued and respected, Employees felt supported and motivated, and even the manager began to experience a sense of renewed purpose. The store had become a place of education and reflection, guided by the woman's calm and deliberate leadership. Throughout the afternoon, the manager began to implement some of the strategies the woman had suggested. He started by apologizing personally to employees who had witnessed his outburst, acknowledging the impact of his actions. He engaged in conversations about respectful communication and asked for feedback on how he could improve. The staff, encouraged by the woman's example, responded positively, offering suggestions and sharing their own experiences. The environment gradually shifted from one of fear and tension to one of collaboration and mutual respect. The woman observed these changes with quiet satisfaction. She knew that meaningful change took time and consistent effort, but she also understood that moments like this could serve as catalysts for growth. By addressing the incident calmly, thoughtfully, and proactively, she had set the stage for long-term improvements in workplace culture and leadership practices. Her approach demonstrated that even difficult and emotionally charged situations could be transformed into opportunities for learning and positive change. As the day drew to a close, the store's atmosphere had been completely transformed. What had begun as a shocking and tense incident had become a powerful lesson in leadership, accountability, and respect. The manager, now more aware of his actions and their consequences, felt a renewed commitment to improve himself and support his staff. The employees felt empowered and inspired, recognizing the importance of treating others with dignity and understanding. Customers left the store with a sense of admiration and respect, having witnessed a rare example of composure and grace in the face of conflict. The woman, satisfied that the immediate situation had been addressed effectively, prepared to leave the store. She walked slowly through the aisles one last time, nodding to employees and customers alike. Her presence had left a lasting impression on everyone, showing that true leadership was not measured by wealth, authority, or fear, but by the ability to respond to challenges with integrity, wisdom, and empathy. The manager, humbled and inspired, knew that the lessons he had learned that day would shape his approach to leadership for years to come. Even as the store closed for the night, the impact of the incident continued to resonate. Staff members discussed the lessons learned, customers shared their experiences with friends and family, and the manager reflected on how he could apply the woman's teachings in his daily interactions. The story of the confrontation and the woman's calm, authoritative response began to spread beyond the store, serving as an example of how grace, composure, and thoughtful leadership could turn a negative situation into a powerful moment of growth and education. By the end of the evening, the manager understood that the incident had been a turning point. He realized that leadership required constant self-awareness, empathy, and a commitment to treating others with respect. The woman had not only corrected his behavior, but had also inspired him to become a better leader. The lessons he learned that day would influence his actions, the culture of the store, and the experiences of everyone who entered the space. The confrontation, though difficult, had become an opportunity for transformation, demonstrating that true power lies in composure, dignity, and the courage to lead with integrity. The next day, news of the incident had already begun to spread. Social media posts, videos from bystanders, and whispers from friends and family created a wave of attention that reached far beyond the walls of the store. The woman, however, remained calm and composed. She understood the power of the moment and the influence it could have on others. She did not seek public attention for herself, but she knew this could become an opportunity to inspire meaningful change, not only in her store but across the wider community. She called a staff meeting in the main store, inviting all employees to join. The atmosphere was tense at first, as many employees were still shaken by the events of the previous day. Some were nervous, unsure of what to expect. The manager stood quietly in the back, his head bowed slightly, reflecting on his mistakes and the lessons he had learned. The woman addressed everyone with a calm, firm voice, emphasizing that the goal of the meeting was not to punish but to educate and empower. She began by recounting the incident, explaining that what had occurred was unacceptable and that accountability was necessary. She highlighted the importance of respect, empathy, and professionalism in all interactions with customers and colleagues. She explained that every person who walked into the store deserved dignity and fair treatment, regardless of their appearance, background, or questions. Her words were clear and simple, yet carried a weight that made everyone listen carefully. The staff listened, some nodding in agreement, others quietly reflecting on their own actions. The manager, standing in the back, felt a mixture of shame and relief. He knew he had made a serious mistake, but he also realized he had been given a second chance to grow. The woman's approach was not to humiliate or scare him, but to help him understand the true meaning of leadership. Her calm and composed demeanor made it clear that respect and authority were not measured by fear, but by how one treated others in challenging situations. She then shifted the focus to proactive solutions. She introduced a series of training sessions for all employees, focusing on anti-bias education, respectful communication, and conflict resolution. She emphasized that these were not optional. They were essential for creating a safe, inclusive, and professional work environment. Employees were encouraged to ask questions, share experiences, and engage in discussions about how to handle difficult situations. The woman's approach was inclusive, making everyone feel that their opinions and experiences mattered. The manager was asked to participate actively in the training, not as a speaker but as someone willing to learn and improve. He agreed, feeling a renewed sense of responsibility. He realized that his role as a leader came with the duty to model the behavior he wanted to see in others. This was not simply about managing a store. It was about creating a culture of respect, understanding, and accountability. He understood that his actions would set the tone for the entire team, and that he needed to embrace the lessons fully. As the training sessions began, the woman observed closely. She interacted with employees, answering questions, providing guidance, and sharing her experiences of overcoming challenges and discrimination in her own journey. Her stories were powerful and relatable, showing that success was not just about wealth or status, but about character, resilience, and the way one treated others. Employees were inspired by her words, realizing that their actions had a ripple effect on the company and the people they served. During the sessions, the manager reflected on the events of the previous day. He realized how his assumptions, stress, and lack of self-control had led to a public humiliation that could have been far worse. He saw how quickly respect could be lost and how important it was to respond with patience and understanding, even in high-pressure situations. The woman's calm and thoughtful approach had shown him the power of composure and integrity, and he was determined to carry these lessons into his daily work. Outside the store, the public reaction was intense. Social media posts praised the woman's handling of the situation, highlighting her calm demeanor and her commitment to accountability and education. News outlets picked up the story, focusing not only on the initial incident but on the remarkable way it was resolved. The woman's approach became an example of effective leadership, demonstrating that even in moments of conflict, dignity and grace could turn a negative experience into a powerful teaching moment. Within the store, employees began to notice changes in the manager's behavior. He was more attentive, patient, and reflective. He started conversations with staff about challenges they faced, asking for their input and opinions. He apologized when he made mistakes and took responsibility for his actions. Employees began to trust him more, recognizing that his growth was genuine. The culture of the store slowly began to shift from one of tension and fear to one of collaboration and mutual respect. The woman also emphasized the importance of community engagement. She encouraged staff to interact with customers not just as transactions, but as opportunities to connect and understand their needs. She reminded everyone that respect and empathy were not just for employees within the store, but extended to every person who walked through the doors. Her vision was clear: a store where everyone felt valued, respected, and empowered. Throughout the day, the manager took every opportunity to apply the lessons he had learned. He practiced active listening, acknowledged the perspectives of his employees, and responded thoughtfully rather than reactively. He became more aware of his own biases and assumptions, striving to create an environment where mistakes could be addressed constructively and learning was prioritized over blame. His transformation, guided by the woman's leadership, became evident to everyone around him. As weeks passed, the store's environment improved significantly. Employees felt supported and empowered, customers felt respected and valued, and the manager grew into a more reflective and compassionate leader. The training sessions continued, reinforcing the values of respect, empathy, and accountability. The woman remained involved, checking in regularly, providing guidance and sharing her insights. Her leadership style had created a positive feedback loop, inspiring growth and improvement at every level. The story of the incident and the way it was handled began to inspire discussions beyond the store. Community groups, schools, and businesses used it as an example of effective conflict resolution and leadership. People admired how a potentially negative event had been transformed into an opportunity for growth and education. The woman's actions demonstrated that true leadership was about more than authority. It was about the courage to respond thoughtfully, the wisdom to guide others, and the ability to turn mistakes into lessons. The manager, reflecting on the journey, realized how far he had come. He had gone from a position of stress-driven authority to one of thoughtful leadership. He understood the responsibility he carried, not just for managing a store, but for influencing the culture and experiences of every person who worked there. The woman's guidance had not only corrected his behavior, but had also inspired a deeper commitment to personal growth and accountability. Employees, now more confident and engaged, began to take initiative in creating a respectful and inclusive environment. They collaborated more effectively, communicated more openly, and approached challenges with patience and understanding. Customers noticed the change, often commenting on the friendly, professional, and welcoming atmosphere. The incident that had once caused tension had evolved into a powerful story of transformation, shared and admired by many. By the end of the month, the store had become a model for positive workplace culture. The manager continued to implement the lessons he had learned, and the employees embraced the values of respect and accountability. The woman's leadership had set a standard, demonstrating that true influence came from composure, integrity, and the courage to lead with empathy. The story of the confrontation, the calm handling of conflict, and the resulting transformation became a lasting example of how difficult moments could be turned into opportunities for meaningful growth and positive change. Months had passed since the incident in the store, but the lessons learned remained fresh for everyone involved. The manager had transformed completely from the person who had acted impulsively and aggressively to someone more patient, reflective, and aware of his own behavior. He had taken every opportunity to implement the teachings the woman had shared with him. And over time, the culture of the store had shifted remarkably. Employees were more confident, respectful, and engaged, while customers noticed the warmth and professionalism in every interaction. The woman, meanwhile, continued her hands-on leadership approach. She made frequent visits to the store, not to assert authority, but to connect with the staff and understand their experiences. She asked questions, listened attentively, and offered advice and guidance where necessary. Her presence was empowering, not intimidating. She showed that leadership was about fostering growth, not about demanding submission. Her actions spoke louder than any words, demonstrating that true authority comes from empathy, composure, and a commitment to justice and respect. The manager often reflected on the day he had slapped the woman, realizing how close he had come to irreparable damage to both his career and the store's reputation. That moment had been a wake-up call, forcing him to confront his own flaws and biases. The lessons he learned from the experience went far beyond workplace rules or customer service. They were about character, self-control, and understanding the impact of one's actions on others. He had learned that leadership was not about power, but about influence and responsibility. Employees had noticed the manager's transformation and were inspired to improve their own behavior. They engaged more openly with one another, addressed conflicts constructively, and sought guidance when needed. The store had become a space of mutual respect, learning, and collaboration. The woman had created an environment where mistakes were treated as opportunities for growth, and accountability was balanced with guidance and support. Staff members no longer feared punishment, but instead embraced the chance to learn and improve. The story of the incident had also reached the broader community. Local media and online platforms shared the events, focusing not only on the initial confrontation, but on the remarkable way it had been resolved. People admired the woman's calm, thoughtful handling of the situation and the positive changes that followed. The incident became a case study in leadership, empathy, and conflict resolution. Schools, businesses, and community groups began discussing the story, using it as an example of how to turn challenging moments into learning experiences. The manager had begun mentoring newer employees, sharing the lessons he had learned from the incident. He spoke openly about his mistakes and the importance of reflection, patience, and respect in all interactions. He encouraged them to observe the way the woman led and to practice empathy and composure in their own roles. His approach was honest and vulnerable, which made it relatable and impactful for the staff. Over time, his guidance helped to foster a strong sense of community and trust within the team. The woman continued to lead by example, demonstrating how to handle difficult situations with poise and wisdom. She addressed challenges calmly, listened carefully, and offered solutions that balanced accountability with understanding. Employees felt empowered to speak up, share ideas, and support one another. Customers noticed the difference immediately, often commenting on the respectful and welcoming environment. The store had transformed from a place of tension and fear to a space of collaboration, dignity, and professionalism. The manager also took steps to ensure that similar incidents could never happen again. He implemented structured feedback systems, encouraged open communication, and promoted a culture of continuous learning. Staff were trained to recognize and address bias, manage stress, and communicate respectfully in all situations. The manager himself continued to reflect on his actions and decisions, ensuring that he remained accountable and aware of his behavior at all times. His growth inspired those around him and set a strong example for future leaders in the store. The woman occasionally shared stories of her own journey, recounting the obstacles she had faced and the lessons she had learned. She spoke about perseverance, humility, and the importance of treating every individual with respect no matter their background or position. Her stories resonated deeply with the staff, helping them understand that success was not just about money or status, but about character, integrity, and the ability to lead with empathy. Her experiences provided guidance and inspiration, reinforcing the values she had instilled throughout the store. As the months passed, the store became known not just for its products, but for its culture. Customers returned not only for the merchandise, but for the respectful and thoughtful service. Employees felt proud to work in an environment where their voices were heard and their contributions valued. The manager's transformation had a ripple effect, improving morale and creating a workplace culture that emphasized learning, growth, and collaboration. The story of the incident continued to spread online and in the community, serving as an example of how to handle conflict with grace and wisdom. It showed that even difficult moments could be turned into opportunities for personal growth, education, and positive change. The woman's response had transformed a potentially negative situation into a powerful lesson, demonstrating that leadership was about courage, composure, and integrity. Her actions inspired not only the staff but also countless others who heard the story. The manager often reflected on the journey he had been through. He remembered the shock, fear, and embarrassment he had felt in that first moment, and he contrasted it with the growth, understanding, and respect he now experienced. He knew that without the woman's guidance and example, he might never have realized the importance of empathy, accountability, and reflection. He understood that leadership was a continual process of learning, and that mistakes could be transformed into opportunities for growth when handled thoughtfully and responsibly. The employees also reflected on the experience, recognizing the value of learning from challenges. They appreciated the safe and supportive environment the woman had created, where mistakes were not punished but addressed constructively. They understood that respect and professionalism were not just rules to follow, but principles to live by. The incident had taught them the importance of awareness, empathy, and composure, lessons that extended far beyond the store and into their everyday lives. The store continued to thrive, both in business and in culture. The manager, guided by the lessons he had learned, maintained a focus on creating an environment where employees felt valued and supported. The woman's presence and guidance reinforced these values, ensuring that the culture of respect, accountability, and growth remained strong. Customers noticed the difference. Employees embraced the positive environment, and the store became a model of effective leadership and workplace culture. The story of the incident became a source of inspiration for many. It showed that even moments of conflict, aggression, and misunderstanding could be transformed into opportunities for growth, education, and positive change. The woman's calm, composed, and thoughtful response demonstrated that true leadership was about more than authority or power. It was about empathy, integrity, and the courage to lead with wisdom. Her actions had not only corrected a mistake, but had created a lasting impact on the people around her. By the end of the year, the store had fully embraced the values that had been highlighted through the incident. The manager continued to grow as a leader, the employees worked together in harmony, and the customers enjoyed a welcoming and respectful environment. The story of the confrontation, the calm handling of conflict, and the transformation that followed became a lasting example of how dignity, composure, and thoughtful leadership could turn a difficult moment into a powerful lesson for everyone involved. In the quiet moments of reflection, the manager often thought about the woman's words and actions. He realized that the incident had changed not just his approach to leadership, but his perspective on life and human interaction. The lessons of patience, empathy, and integrity would stay with him forever. The employees, too, carried the lessons forward, creating a ripple effect that would influence their interactions both inside and outside the workplace. The woman's influence extended far beyond the store. Her handling of the situation inspired others in the business community, in schools, and in local organizations. She demonstrated that leadership could be exercised with grace, that conflict could be transformed into education, and that respect and empathy were powerful tools for creating positive change. Her example became a beacon, showing that true strength and authority come from composure, dignity, and a commitment to guiding others with wisdom and integrity. The incident that began as a shocking act of aggression had ultimately become a story of transformation, learning, and inspiration. The manager had grown into a better leader, employees had learned the importance of respect and accountability, and customers had experienced a culture of dignity and care. The woman's calm and thoughtful response had turned a negative moment into a lasting legacy, proving that even the most difficult situations could be used as opportunities for growth, education, and positive change. Her actions left an indelible mark on everyone involved, showing that leadership, when guided by empathy, integrity, and composure, could create a better, more respectful world for all.